Welcome back, folks, to the shop here. Today we're going to cover the Sig P938. It is a 9mm subcompact pistol. I believe it was unveiled 2011, slightly larger model than the 238, which is a 380 ACP. This is a 9mm Parabellum. 6 rounds flush mount, 7 rounds with an extended magazine. Nothing super spectacular. They don't have any real kind of major history. I think basically they're just a copycat of the old Colt Mustang. I'm going to show you kind of the way the manuals and stuff tell you to reassemble this gun. I think are bass backwards, so I'm going to do it my way and let you guys decide. But it'll be a single video. I'll take it down real quick. We'll put it back together. Shouldn't take us long. First thing we got to do, we'll start with the slide. So cock it, it's cleared, so got it back. Knock your pin out here. We'll go forward. I'm gonna go ahead and pull the trigger, decock the hammer. I'm gonna pull the guide rod and spring out of there. Of course, that just comes apart, no big deal. Burr will come out. The firing pin here, if you depress the back of the firing pin and kind of push over, the end plate here will come off, and put your finger over there and capture it, because that firing pin is going to want to come flying out of there. Pull that out. There you go. Spring comes out. Spring does have a big end and a little end, and you'll see that. That's how that fits in there. The little end goes up against the firing pin. I think one of the major differences between the 238 and this one, I think the 238 has an internal extractor, kind of like the 1911s, so that would come out as well. This is an external extractor, so you would punch this roll pin out, and there's a spring under here, a coil spring. Again, don't take these out. Every time you drive a roll pin in and out, it loses its springiness, I guess. Firing pin stop, this little firing pin stop safety here, you would have to take the sight off to get that out, so I'm not going to remove it. Pretty simple in the slide. It's very 1911-esque, which is kind of its appeal to everybody. Pull the grip screws out. These Hogue grips that are on this one kind of retain that bottom set of screws on both sides, so no big deal. Let them stay in there if they're going to stay in there. Next thing I'm going to do is the mag release, just like the 1911s. Push all the way in, twist her, she comes out here. The safety come out. I'm going to take the mainspring pin out, or the mainspring housing, its pin, push that out. Don't worry about pulling that out just yet. The safety is going to rotate up clockwise, whatever, about 90 degrees. Keep your thumb at the bottom here as you're pushing up, because there's a detent and spring under there that's going to want to come flying out, and it's going to have some force behind it, man. It'll take an eye out if you're not watching that little guy there. It's a big, it's kind of a small stout spring, but it's not pushing a whole lot, and that little guy will come rocketing out of there and probably vanish into thin air too, which is a big pain in the ass. The ambidextrous safety, when you rotate it up, will fall out. You can pull that out. Now that we've got all the spring pressure and everything else off, what I'm going to do is this hammer pin here, I'm going to go ahead and push that out. Let that come out. Then I'm going to pull your hammer and its strut out from the top. Dump the mainspring out the bottom there, or top rather. Now you can take your punch and you can push the pin that holds your ejector and sear in, and just push that out. As a matter of fact, that's already kind of come out there. Oop. Now let that pin come out. Your sear will wobble out. Now you can start pulling your mainspring housing out, which is what the mainspring, or excuse me, your sear spring and ejector spring are hooked to. They kind of hold on to that mainspring housing. They come out of there. That's really it to these little guns. There's nothing special. This trigger is held in by this pin. Unless you have to replace something in here, don't take that out. There is a spring inside of it that doesn't want to cooperate typically. This guy here is only being held in by this. I mean, you could pull that out if you wanted to finagle with it. Just another piece here. This guy, this is your disconnect. So if the slide's not in battery like it should be, it'll disconnect the trigger from the sear. The slide stop spring here is staked in, so unless it's broken, don't try and pull this out at all. Leave it there. These are anodized aluminum receivers with stainless slides. They're pretty good little pistols. Everybody that I know that has one seems to enjoy it. But that is literally all there is to disassembling these little guys. I know I went through that kind of fast, but that's because it is that easy to take apart. As long as you know what you're doing and how to go about it, it's a pretty simple thing. I'm gonna go ahead and put it back together now. Like I said, I'll make this one video. I'm gonna show you a step that makes it a whole lot easier. A lot of people try to get your your hammer in and your mainspring housing and all that stuff, and then try and put your sear and ejector and stuff in with it, and that makes for a huge pain in the ass, I think. Typically what I'd like to do is to go ahead and take our shear spring and mainspring housing, and when you put that sear spring in, that guy, see this cutout in the frame? Maybe you can or can't, I don't know. Right in there, this little hooked leg of that spring has got to feed through there like this, and then you find the slots for your mainspring housing, and then when it comes up, stop right about there, and you're going to push both legs of the spring back behind that trigger bar and finish pushing it up. And at this point, I'm going to go ahead and put that mainspring housing pin back in the gun there. Then what I'm going to do is just like we did the exact opposite, man. I'm going to put the sear in next. Now this, if you've got a little set of pliers, it really helps, because you can just kind of squeeze it in. That it's the legs of the spring of our sear spring here have to be behind your sear here and your ejector. That little hooked part of this leg of the spring here sits on this. So we're going to take our pliers, and this is the orientation. It should fit in there like this. And what I'll do is I'll go in here and kind of pull the trigger bar out of the way, and oh, I kind of fucked up there. Get your sear pin and get it started first, kind of part way in. And if you want to use a slave pin to do this, go right ahead. It's not a bad idea, but I just hold it there, and I'll just kind of thumb that out of the way, and then push on the springs while pushing up on that pin, and it's captured. Same thing here. This ejector, its orientation, it's going to sit in here just like this. And if you haven't pushed that pin all the way through, you can literally just slide it in until you see those holes line up, and then finish pushing your sear pin in. Let's see if I can't get this guy to cooperate with me. Like I said, once those holes are lined up, you can just kind of finish pushing that little pin in. that makes it a whole lot easier doing it this way than having the hammer in here and trying to fight against it and these springs. It gives you room to do stuff instead of trying to finagle these springs up and behind it or have everything in place and put it in. And then take just your main spring here, and I drop it down back in there, and you can take that hammer strut, put it down inside of that spring, and then now if you push that trigger back just a little bit, you can take that hammer and line it up in the hole there and just stick your hammer pin, move your ejector out of the way a little bit, and your hammer pin, just kind of wiggle it and it'll pop right into place there. And now you have it's all in there. It makes things so much more simple if you do it that way than trying to fight having this hammer fighting up against the sear and the spring and the trigger bar while you're trying to put all, you know, this little pin in and line everything up. Put this in after you get all the rest of this stuff in here. It's just so much easier. Take your safety, and if you see these little notches in the safety itself, let's see if you can see that there, but you'll see, yeah, just like that. Those little notches, they coincide with notches on the frame itself here. Line it up, shove her through there, and then there's kind of a butterfly looking groove in the other side, part of this ambidextrous, and you just line that up with the corresponding part there. Stick it on, and then your little grooves in the safety selector here will ride onto that, kind of keeping that pin in. In the meantime, we've got to put this little guy back in. And like I said, it's going in the same way as coming out, man. You got to pay attention. This thing will launch on you. But I'll just drop it in there and use a small flat-bladed screwdriver. Of course, I lost the damn side there. And make sure you're holding this other safety in there, it'll fall out like I did. And I'll put my thumb and everything over it like that. Doesn't always work, but I like to keep my thumb there to help capture it if it wants to jump out. And just rotate that safety selector back down over it like that. We'll put our mag release back in there. Just turn it clockwise, it should just pop right in. No big deal. Slide, like I said, just kind of the reverse order. Your spring on, little end of the spring in there. Pop it in. Your end plate. Put it kind of in its grooves, then you can just take your punch or whatever and push the firing pin in and down, and then just slide it back over like that. Our barrel, guide rod and spring, plop it back in there, make sure your barrel's in correctly. Got to push your ejector down out of the way as you're assembling it so the slide can come over there. And I'll start the slide stop in there, that pin, and just pop it in. That all works. And then we slide on the grippy grips. Hopefully you didn't lose your screws or anything there. These don't have to be real tight either. Keep in mind it's a steel screw going into an alloy frame, so if you over tighten them, you're just going to strip that hole out and you're screwed. There's a screw and a hole joke there. But just about hand tight, man. These rubber grips will hold on to these screws so that way they don't go backing out on you. Worst case scenario, if it keeps backing out, put a little blue Loctite on it, be done with it. But That's all there is, man. Don't get caught up in trying that trick about leaving that hammer and all that crap out until you get your sear and ejector and all that in there. It just works so much smoother. Granted, I've done this a couple of times, so I've got a little bit of practice, but it is that much easier. It'll save you so much more time to have all the room to work in here and then drop your hammer down in there. Yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Give me a like, share, any comments. Oh yeah, subscribe.